to be sharing with you in this video how to develop wisdom and increase your intelligence. And the truth is that you might be thinking, who am I to stand here and explain to you why you can increase your wisdom and intelligence? Like, how is it that I'm just going to stand here and explain this to you? The truth is that I really do believe that we absolutely can consciously and deliberately increase that deeper part of us, that connection to that deeper essence within us, where we can make better decisions, be more powerful human beings, just increase our power. Not in a way where you're just in it for yourself, but it's how you can be better to then share that power with the world, to then help others also become empowered and to become better people. And really what I mean is to become more wise. You can increase your intelligence, and then you can also help others to actually do the same. Like, it's not something that you should really take lightly, in the sense that it's a possibility that maybe perhaps many just don't consider. Maybe you don't consider that, and I invite and encourage you to open yourself up to this possibility as we start this video. And so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to develop wisdom and to increase your intelligence, to increase this part of you, is to remember that I personally have found that the best thing that I can do is to embrace lessons in my life. And that sounds super cliche. I know it sounds cliche and it's like a little weird to say it in this way, but the truth is that there's going to be lessons in your life. Sometimes things are just going to be uncomfortable. Things are going to cause you lots of suffering and lots of pain. You know, that's just the truth. Is that I'm not trying to make it sound like life is going to be difficult and that life is always going to be hard, but I'm just telling you that, you know, there's going to be times where suffering and pain and uncomfortability and resistance are just simply going to come up. And so what I would invite and encourage you, like, if you want to become truly more wise, truly become more intelligent in your life, and then use this intelligence, use this wisdom to then, you know, be better, to then carry yourself in a much more powerful way. The way that you're going to do this is that when that lesson comes up, you know, when that challenge comes up to the surface, which is inevitably going to happen, right? I think that we need to come to accept that challenges and that lessons are just going to happen, right? Things are just going to happen. Things are going to pop up to the surface that maybe you didn't necessarily anticipate were going to happen. Like, you didn't know, you didn't anticipate it. Like, you thought that the plan was going to go perfect, right? You thought that things were just going to go how they were going to go, but then you didn't anticipate a lesson. But the truth is that I think that if we go through life with proper expectations and we set those expectations straight, and we just remember that, you know what, things are going to happen, problems are going to happen, resistance is going to come up to the surface, right? The plan is not going to go perfectly, right? You set an expectation where you remember, you know what, things are just going to go wrong. And it sounds so bad to say it like that. It's like, well, it's like, are you just walking through life just anticipating that things are going to go wrong? See, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to just go through life and anticipate that problems are going to happen and that you should be in a fear-based mentality and live your life in fear. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that inevitably so, you know, as you try to maintain a high state, which I think is the most powerful thing that you can do with life, is to maintain a high state of being, to be in a high state and to control your state, because you can't control many things in life. Right? There's many things that you cannot control. But if you try to take control of your state, which you do have some control over this, right? Controlling your own state is something that you can do. When you're doing this, when that lesson comes up, inevitably so, as you're taking control of just being in a high state, which is of course what we all want to do to some degree. We want to maintain a high state, whether consciously or unconsciously. I think that that's what we're all leaning towards. But as you're doing this, when that problem happens, when you have a goal, let's say you're creating a goal, and then that challenge comes up that makes you feel like you can create the goal. How do you deal with that? Well, the way that you do this is that you embrace fully the lesson. You don't shy away from the lesson. You know, it might be an uncomfortable topic, you know, in that situation. Maybe there's a conversation that needs to happen. Maybe there's lots of pain in some degree or something that's happening. Maybe you're suffering a lot. Whatever's happening, I encourage you just to embrace that. Now, when I say the word embrace, I just want to be really clear here is that I'm not saying to hold on, to the lesson, to hold on to the pain. That's not what I'm saying. I wouldn't say to hold on to the pain or the lesson, because the truth is that you don't need to hold on to the pain or hold on to the lesson. Like, you don't need to do this. There's no need to hold on to the pain and hold on to the lesson. But what I would invite you to do nonetheless, though, is to embrace the lesson fully and embrace that challenge fully, to fully be there, to fully be in that present moment. Because if you're experiencing some type of pain, one of the most powerful quotes that I ever learned from a mentor that, one of the most powerful mentors that I've ever worked with in my life is that, the only way out of something sometimes is through something. So you shouldn't try to, the only way out is through, right? If you want to move out of something, if you want to step out of something in your life, if you want to move on from something with your life, if you want to let go of something in your life, you must move through it, not around it or try to escape it or try to pretend like it doesn't exist. No, it's like you go through it and fully embrace it, and then only then can you move past it. Can you move on from it? If you don't embrace it, what's going to happen is that it's going to come up to the surface at a later time, probably when you don't want it to come up, that challenge, that situation, that negative pattern, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe it's just something that's completely out of your control. Maybe life threw some challenge at you, some situation that was completely out of your control, that had nothing to do with you, right? That's a lot of suffering that can happen. Life sometimes can do that, unfortunately, is that it can just throw a bunch of stuff at you that has nothing to do with you. You did nothing wrong. There was nothing that you did. You didn't put in you didn't do any issues. You didn't make a mistake. Everything you did is perfect. But the truth is that, of course, nothing's perfect, but to the closest degree possible, like, you did the perfect things. You took the perfect actions, right? But still, life threw something at you. And you got to remember, sometimes it's just not your fault. It's not always your fault that a challenge and negativity is coming up. But even if that's the case, even if that's the case, that life just randomly throws something at you, with that being the case, even this, you want to embrace this fully so that you don't hold resentment at life itself. How sad would that be if you walk through life and you're resentful, not at a person, not at a situation, not at something, that's something that, maybe seems like more justifiable to be upset about. But imagine you go through life and you're just bitter and resentful at life itself, at just life. Like, not even a person or a situation anymore. It's like you're going through, just like life. I don't want to go through this life anymore. It's like that's a serious statement. I don't mean to laugh at that, but it's like, this is the mentality that we walk through life with, and we're bitter and resentful. Some people are resentful towards life, and I think that that's not a joke. That's serious stuff, because if you're going to walk through life and you can embrace the lesson, what if you walk through life and you're so distracted, you fall and you trip and you break a finger and you break an arm or something? What's the lesson there? Embrace that lesson fully, and remember to be more careful, to be more wise, to be more intelligent. How do you become more wise? How do you become more intelligent? By, unfortunately, embracing that pain of that lesson, where if you maybe did fall and you did trip, maybe you fall in a little corner. Maybe you're walking on a path one day on the way to work or something, or on the way to your friend's house, and you find that there's a little path on the way to that place, and you find there's a little ditch, something that makes you fall, and you break your arm, and you feel like you're in total pain and resistance, and you're in lots of pain. It's like, how do you fix that? How do you become more wise and more intelligent through that situation? Well, once you have the injury or the pain that resulted from you not being careful, you embrace that fully. You own it fully. You don't shy away from the fact that it happened. You obviously are not going to be able to pretend that it didn't happen, because if you're injured physically, people aren't going to see that, right? You embrace it fully. You just fully embrace it. You don't hold on to it or let it define your identity, or let it define the actions that you take, or let it define you from being a person that can heal as fast as possible from that situation. I'm not saying to block your healing or to block your ability to move on. What I'm saying is just to be there fully and experience it. Just experience it. And remember that the second thing that I want to share with you in this video is to remember that, unfortunately it is the case that humans, in a weird way, do learn through pain. And that sounds weird to say. It's like, what do you mean humans learn through pain? Well, we kind of do, because remember, if you do fall and break your arm and you feel like you're in lots of pain and it's like you don't ever want to have that happen again, how is that not going to happen again? Next time when you walk on the way to that friend's house or on the way to work or whatever the situation is, and there's a little ditch that made you fall last time, until that ditch is repaired, or unless you call somebody to go fix it, which might be the wisest and intelligent move, really, just call someone to go fix that. Until that happens, the most wise and intelligent move, if you don't have time or decide to call, is just to be aware of that situation, just to be more wise, to be more intelligent. But what is wisdom and what is intelligence? Really, it's consciousness. It's awareness and mindfulness. It's not necessarily more thinking. See, because if you can't think your way into more intelligence, into more wisdom, thinking is not the way to become more wise. You can definitely use your thoughts to take more action and to have more goals and to be in alignment with the things that you prefer to see happen in your life, and to see all the things that you want to see happen in your life, and to see all those goals happen in your life. 100%. You can do that. You can use your thoughts in this way. But truthfully, to become more wise is just the raw experience itself of just taking action. Just taking action to begin with. Just simply the act of taking action itself is sometimes what you need in order to create more of what you decide in your life. It's not through thinking more or making more decisions. It's following through and taking action towards those decisions that you actually made for yourself, so that you can learn through the pain that comes up inevitably so through that path. So when that pain comes up inevitably so, that's how humans learn. And unfortunately, so the point here is that that's how humans kind of learn, is through contrast, through pain, right? Because that pain can become so excruciating and so much suffering can happen that you never really want to experience it again. You never want to experience that pain or go through that same challenge or feel that way ever again. Sometimes it's just the raw truth that humans can go through so much pain and so much resistance and so much negativity that they realize, like, I know one thing for sure, there's many things in my life that you might be thinking to yourself at some point in your life. You might have this thought process where, like, you might think, maybe there's many things you might not know in your life. You might not know if you want to create more of something in your life. Maybe you don't know what's the kind of success you want to create. You might not know the kind of relationship that you want sometimes. Maybe that might happen, how you want to define your relationships. You might not know how much money you want to make. You might have money problems. You might have many problems in your life. Many things can happen in your life at any time. Many things can happen. All these problems can happen. But the truth is that how do you deal with these problems is the most important thing in your life. It's how you deal with these problems and how you choose to respond to these problems, which is what's going to make you more powerful. These problems are inevitably going to happen, but it's the pain and how you learn from those challenges is what's going to help you. But I want to make something very clear. When these challenges come up, you might not know many things, but one thing that you will absolutely know for sure is what you do not want, what you do not want to see happen in your life, what you don't want to see created. But that's very useful information. You might not know how to avoid that ditch next time, but you might know one thing is to avoid it. Is to be aware of that possibility, to the thought of to avoid it, to not go into that path again. You might not know how to create what you want or how to create that solution to that problem, but you know that problem is something you never want to experience ever again, absolutely in your life. That's for sure. For sure one thing, you might not know how to create your goal. You might not know what you want. You might not know how to fix these problems or how this happened or why you're going through these challenges. You might feel very emotional in your life sometimes. You might feel lots of emotions. You might feel overwhelmed in terms of not knowing what you want. But knowing what you do not want is very useful feedback from life. It's very useful information to have from life, just to simply be aware that you absolutely know what you don't want to see happen. if you know what you don't want to see happen in your life and what you don't want to create, learning through pain and remembering what you don't want to see happen is very, very powerful. So just remember that if you're feeling lots of pain, if you're feeling lots of suffering, if you're feeling lots of resistance, what's the lesson there? Embrace that lesson and remember, how can you never experience this ever again in your life? How can you stop experiencing this pain right now and then stop it from happening again? Not by avoiding it or not embracing it, but separating yourself from it and redefining it. Redefining the pain. Because pain is going to happen, like I said, but how you see it and how you move through it and how you deal with that problem is ultimately what's going to define your character, define who you are, define how you show up in the world and how you are able to help others. If you really want to help others, if you want to be of service, if you want to be selfless, if you want to be of service to the world, if you want to help people, if you want to help others on their path, you're going to need to develop your own wisdom and your own intelligence and learn to make your own decisions, to think for yourself, because you can't always depend on other people to make your own choices, right? You can't just be thinking about how this person needs to make a choice for you or how you're a victim and then you can't create what you want and why you can't be the decider in your life about what you want to create. It's like these things are all just belief systems, and the way that you overcome these belief systems is by embracing the pain sometimes. Like if you're going to feel pain in your life, if you're going to have an inevitable challenge, just remember that, that's how humans learn. Humans sometimes just unfortunately learn through lots and lots of pain. Like sometimes, it's really weird. I don't know why it is the case. Maybe just humans, this is just human nature in a certain way. But to some degree, it's almost like no matter what. It's almost like no matter what happens in life, like sometimes, for me, this is just how it is for me, how it's been in the past. I'm still human, I'm not perfect, I'm still learning. But it's almost like humans kind of need to wait for a concern or, some thought or fear to become an actual problem before they finally take action to fix it. To finally become more wise and to finally not do it ever again, they need to let it become an actual problem. And maybe that's just what humans, maybe that's the fault of the human existence. Maybe that's why humans are so unwise and so unintelligent, because that's what we do. We wait for challenges to happen. But on the flip side, sometimes true wisdom and true intelligence can only happen when you let the chaos just kind of unfold a little bit. And I'm not saying to be unwise or let yourself be unwise. I'm saying that if the challenge happens, to then embrace that fully. So I want to reword what I said there, because it's not that I'm really saying that, you need to let chaos happen or let things become a little, let things become in a way where there's friction all around you and you feel unsafe and you feel insecure. I'm not saying to let that happen. I would never say to let that happen. And if I said that, then I take it back. And I take it back. But what I'm saying is that the truth is that when that challenge comes up, the point of the message here, and what I'm really trying to say is that just remember that maybe that's how you learn. Maybe that's how human beings are meant to learn. Have you ever thought about maybe the best way to learn is through pain and through suffering? Because you know that through suffering, you're going to actually improve and never repeat that mistake ever again. Because let's say you burn your hand on a stove. How do you remember to never touch hot fire or to never put your hand on a stove? Because maybe one time when you were a little kid, you had an extreme level of pain and resistance and you burned your hand and you learn never to do it again. And there's just some things in life where you just have to do something to experience the pain and just remember that, you know what? Because of this pain, it's just so simple. What's the solution? I'm never going to do this thing this way ever again. Just simple as that. I'm never going to do it ever again. I'm not going to, maybe you go to the gym and you injure yourself, you injure your shoulder because you did a technique wrong. What's the wisdom there? What's the lesson? How do you become more intelligent? Never do that technique with that form ever again. Don't do it. Just simply don't do it. Maybe you had to go through that pain and to go through that challenge and to be a little bit unwise, then to learn to never do it again. That's okay. I'm not saying that it has to be the case. I'm just saying that sometimes, unfortunately, it is the case. It doesn't have to be the case. Ideally, what's the ideal situation? Somebody has already accidentally went through many problems, many pain points, many challenges. You can call this a mentor or a teacher or whatever word or you want to use, right? Or a guide. I'm not saying that they consciously went into the problems, but they had a goal and they already have seen the problems or seen the challenges in that area. I think the ideal situation is for you not to repeat those problems. You go talk to that person and you go figure out all those challenges, all those problems, all that pain and all the suffering that they experience, all the negativity and the situations that they didn't expect to happen, that all those things that happened, you should go learn from that. Shouldn't you so? Shouldn't you go do that? Shouldn't you go learn from all those challenges and all those problems that person experienced? Wouldn't that be the most wise thing to do, is to go learn from those problems? Is to go learn from, wouldn't that be the smartest thing to do, is just go learn? Because if you're not actually learning from what that person actually experienced and you think that you have to go do it all by yourself, well then that's not really wise either. I think that sometimes wisdom can be just to go ask somebody else, and ideally you don't need to go through the pain. You can just go ask that person what they did and how they went through those challenges so that you don't need to repeat the same thing. I think that's also wisdom. Yes, humans, unfortunately so, need to learn through pain, need to learn through resistance. But it doesn't have to be you. It could have been somebody else, and then you can go learn from them. You can go take all that resistance, go take all that pain, all that negativity, all that suffering, those years of lessons that they learn on the way to creating their vision. And if your vision is the same vision that they have, or is aligned with their vision to some degree, it's absolutely the wisest choice that you can make to go connect with that person and to go figure out exactly how they got what they wanted, and the challenges and pain points and the resistances and the limiting beliefs and everything that blocked them from creating it up until the point that they created it, and to go figure it out and to go learn that. And just remember that that's how that person got so powerful in that specific area of life. Not power in an egotistical sense, but genuine power, where how do they develop that high skill set or that knowledge in that area? By all that pain that they experienced. If somebody is a genuine master or really good or very powerful or has a high level of skill set it's just like they're really good at something. They're just very, very good at something. They become almost, you could say, a master, whatever word you want to use. They've created exactly what they wanted, and they're there. They've made it, so to speak, in terms of what they want to create. How do you learn from that, or how do they get there? Through lots of pain, lots of suffering. And I'm not saying that they had to go through that, or maybe they learned again from somebody else that already had that pain. Maybe that person learned from somebody else that already went through the pain too. Somebody had to go through it, and somebody has to be the teacher to explain it. And maybe if that person didn't go through it, somebody did, and they learned from that person that did, and so on. And I think that this is just part of the human existence. It's just, remember that. That's just the way humans are. Maybe who knows why it's the case, but if you're honest with yourself, if you agree with me, and that's not going to help you, I don't want you to agree with this. It's like, if you're honest with yourself, what you'll find is that sometimes you needed to let things become a little bit more chaotic, or you accidentally let it happen to then learn to not do it again. I'm not saying that you needed to do it consciously. I'm just saying, you let it happen by accident. Something happened, you got too busy, you went against your word, you're not perfect, right? Something happened, pain, or just life threw something at you that was not your fault at all. And that happens, when that situation happens, that's your opportunity to learn. And if you're prepared to see it as an opportunity, then that's exactly what's going to happen. Because if you see that pain point as a reason to not become more wise, and it's just, I don't know why this is happening, victim mentality, me, I don't know why this is happening to me. It's not always about you, okay? I know that sounds bad to say it like that. I'm saying a little more, the reason I say it in that way with that tone is because it's not about you, in the sense that why be so selfish? Why not take this pain and then move through it and then help somebody else not experience that? If you've been through lots of pain, lots of suffering, lots of negative experiences that inevitably so happened in your life, however you want to see it, wouldn't it be selfish for you just to be a victim to that? Why would you be a victim? Why let yourself be a victim to all these problems and to all these challenges? Why not take these challenges, move past them, become a better person, and then help others not experience that same level of suffering and resistance and pain, and take that wisdom, take that intelligence and then share that knowledge with the world. Why not just do that? Wouldn't it be the most selfless thing to do? And wouldn't it be selfish to just be a victim? I think that people forget that a victim mentality is the most selfish thing that you can do. You know, not creating your desires and not creating your goals and not creating what you want and not moving past your pain and becoming a better person and increasing your level of comfortability to some degree and your peace is selfish. You know, not becoming more peaceful, not decreasing the amount of pain and suffering in your life and increasing your standards and moving towards what your heart wants is the most selfish thing that you can do for the entire planet. You know, if you want to be super selfish and super negative towards people, then just remember to never go towards your goals, never go towards your desires, and, you know, never move past your pain and just be a victim. Just be a victim. If you want to be the most selfish person in the world, be a victim and do not create your goals. If you want to be selfless, relentlessly and fearlessly take action towards your goals. Relentlessly and fearlessly go towards what you want every single day. Be committed, show excellence, show devotion, show discipline, show that you're committed to being the person that you want to be. Show life that you're absolutely committed to being the person that you actually want to be by showing up for yourself every single day, even when you're experiencing pain. And I'm not saying to, and okay, that sounds kind of bad. When you're experiencing pain, what I'm saying is that learn from that. If you need to take a step back and not take action to learn from the pain, then absolutely do so. Don't just take so much action that you're never taking rest days, because a big problem, and you know, with how do you become super not wise and extremely unintelligent? By not stopping taking action when you know that you have to and that you're burnt out or that you don't have enough energy to do so. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying to, you know, take action through the pain. I'm just saying that how can you take that pain to become better? Now, excuse me, the final thing that I want to share with you in this video is just to remember that, you know, if you really want to develop more wisdom and increase your intelligence in your life, what I would invite and encourage you to do is just to remember to forgive. You know, absolutely forgive the people that hurt you or the negative situations, or if life itself threw a challenge at you, absolutely forgive. You know, you should always forgive the people that hurt you or forgive life for throwing something at you, because it's not going to help you to move through life and to hold pain and resentment in your heart. You know, you can't move through life and, excuse me, hold pain and resentment in your heart. That's not going to help you to become your greatest version and to help others become their greatest version. You can't become the person that you want to be if you're holding pain and resentment in your heart. But to conclude this video, what I want to share with you is just remember to forgive. You know, forgive life, forgive the person, forgive the situation, but do not forget. Don't forget what happened. Don't forget that situation. Don't forget the person that hurt you if they did that. Don't forget the negative situation or the challenge or something, whatever happened. Don't forget that. Why would you forget that? Excuse me. You should never forget these problems and these challenges. These problems and challenges are not something that you should just forget or pretend like they never happened. And then sing Kumbaya around the campfire and then do a samba and then do a dance. Just like, obviously I'm just kidding around, but it's not like you should just pretend like there's just bunnies and there's roses and there's birds chirping outside and the weather is beautiful when it's a rainy day, and it's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to pretend that something didn't happen and then to forget about it and then to not experience your emotions and then to not embrace your feelings or to pretend that stuff isn't the case. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, you know, when that problem happens, when that challenge happens, forgive it, just let it go. But remember that it caused you pain. Just remember that it caused you pain, you know? You don't need to forget anything that caused you pain because that's valid. That's valid. You're valid for having that perspective, for having that awareness that that situation, yes, it did in fact cause you pain. It did in fact cause you lots of pain and suffering, and it was not okay that that situation happened. But you do need to forgive and let it go. And it's both, right? Don't forget about it, but forgive. When people say forgive and forget, it's like, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that the best thing you can do is forgive, but don't forget. And then from there, trust that intelligence within you to then trust your actions, trust your emotions, trust your intuition. Intuition might seem like an airy-fairy concept, but I think that your intuition is connected with all the pain and the lessons and all the suffering that you experience in your life, then telling you what actions to take or not to take based on your wisdom and your intelligence. Well, what is wisdom? What is intelligence? It's all the pain of the past telling you what you should do and not do. And when I say this, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying to be clouded by the veil of negativity that happened in the past or something that happened in the past. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying to allow these negative emotions to then block you from opening yourself up to the possibility that you can create a better version of yourself, or to have a better vision, or to have a better future. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you just want to use that past and trust that that pain that you experienced happened for a purpose, and to reframe that situation in a positive light to help yourself become better, and then hopefully, if you want to, help others do the same thing. Because like if you experience pain, let's say you overcame some extreme level of pain, an extreme level of suffering, and you feel like you've increased your knowledge in a certain area to a very high degree because you really overcame some type of pain, some type of extreme level of uncomfortability. Wouldn't you just want to share that with the world? Wouldn't you just want to do that? Isn't that just something that you want to do? Something that you care about to do? Wouldn't that just be like the kind of like the first thing that just like you are called to do, is just to let others know that they don't need to be stuck on that pain? If you were able to forgive somebody, to forgive the past, to forgive life, to move on and heal from a negative situation, wouldn't you just want to share that with the world? Absolutely, to be the case, and just to let them know that, it absolutely is the case that you don't need to hold on to that pain, and that you can be something better, and that you can improve your life and then be a better human being. Wouldn't that be just the first thing? That's just for me the case that I just would want to do that. If I experienced something, that really helped me to be better and to not be attached to the pain of the past, and to move on, to shift my identity into who I prefer to be, to shift myself into who I actually want to be, I would want to share that. I would want to let people know and just say, hey, you know what? You have the power to decide who you want to be. You might think that you don't have a choice. You might feel powerless sometimes. You might feel like you don't have choices and that you don't have a say to be the type of person that you want. But all these belief systems, I believe, even those in of itself, are simply a choice. You can redefine your belief systems to feel like you have a choice, to feel like you have a say. You are in control. You can't control many things in life. You can't control the outside world. You definitely can't control people. You can't control situations. There's so many things you can't control. But what can you control? You can control your thoughts. You can control your actions. You can control your state of being. You can take actions to control your state. You can absolutely not allow the external world to define your internal state by remembering that you have control over your state. Your state is not something that happens as a result of what happens out there. You create your state from within, and then the out there responds to your state. The way that you see a situation has your ability to change the situation. Your ability to have a positive perspective about a situation can help you move on from the situation. So what I'm inviting you to do here is that if you experience some very negative experience, how do you see that situation? Are you able to forgive that situation? Are you able to let it go? Or are you attached to it? Because if you're attached to the pain of the past, this is not going to help you to become more wise and to increase your intelligence and to increase your wisdom. The last way to increase, if you want to slow down the process of increasing your intelligence and increasing your wisdom, hold on to the pain and hold on to resentment of the past and a situation or a person or whatever the case might be. Just hold on to it. But if you want to let go and you want to develop more wisdom and to become more wise and to become a better person in every single area, then what you really want to do is forgive that situation, but don't forget it. Remember that pain. Remember what caused you pain. Remember that you didn't like it, that it didn't resonate for you. You didn't enjoy it. Don't shy away from that. Own that fully. Own the fact that you didn't like it. Don't pretend like, oh yeah, it's okay, like I like this, and I'm just gonna let people know that it's like, I don't, it's okay for me, but then I know deep in my heart, it's like, I don't really like it. It's like, no, that's not how you're gonna show up anymore. You're gonna let people know, I don't like this. This is not what I like. I don't enjoy this, and this is what I want instead. It doesn't mean you need to disrespect others. It doesn't mean that you need to, even let people know everything. You can just not tell people stuff. I think that one of the best ways to not create and manifest your goal or create your desire, I don't even like the word manifest sometimes because people might see that word in a negative light. But if you want to not create your goal in the fastest way possible and to delay the process of creating your goal and just make it as long as possible to create what you want, right? Tell everybody about your goal before it happens. Let them know. Share it with the world. But if you want to be wise, you cannot tell people. And I'm not saying that you can't tell the right people. You might need to tell your mentor or somebody that supports you. But if you're going to notice that somebody's going to cause any amount of resistance in your body, that's not going to help you to create a goal. And it's going to stop you and it's going to make you feel limited. And it's like you're dimming your light and you're not fully there and you're not fully empowered. If this is the way that you're feeling, if that's how you feel, then don't tell people the goal. Keep it to yourself. Stop telling people things that is not going to help you to create it. If you're telling somebody something that's not going to help you to get there, then don't tell them that thing. Keep it to yourself. If you have somebody that's going to support you to create what you want, and you know that they're going to listen to you, and you know that they're going to actually be there for you, and they're actually going to be there 100% to listen to you and help you to create that goal, then of course tell them. Tell them that situation. But if they're not, then don't tell them. Keep it to yourself. One of the best ways that you can screw up what you want to create or not allow it to happen is by having a huge mouth and over communicating to people things that you don't need to over communicate. But remember, this doesn't mean that you need to hold on to the pain of the past. Let it go. Whatever you need to do to let it go, talk to somebody about it. Don't talk to somebody about it. Keep it to yourself. Don't keep it to yourself. Take action. Don't take action. What's the moral of the story here? Remember to hold your power. I'm sorry to, pause there for a second. Hold your power and to remember that you have the power to decide who you want to be. That's the main message that I think I want people to know is that you can decide who you want to be. There's nobody stopping you from being who you want to be. There's no have-tos. One of my main messages is to remember and let that there's no have-tos. You don't have to do anything. There's no obligation for you to do something in your life. You don't have to, but you can do things if you want to. And if something happens that you didn't like, how are you going to respond to that? You don't have to respond positively to a negative situation. You don't have to see it as, how can I learn from this? Or, when a negative situation happens, you don't have to think about that positively or to see that or reframe that. You don't have to do that. You don't need to do that. But let me ask you, what's the consequence of not doing that? What's the alternative to being a victim? You might think like, oh, well, I'm just going to be a victim and that's my choice. Okay, but what are the consequences of that though? Like, how's that going to affect your life? Because like, if you're saying that, oh, I'm just going to be a victim and it doesn't matter what you think and I'm just going to do this my way. And it's like, okay, well, but what does that mean for your life? What is your life going to look like if you don't take responsibility and own up to the fact that problems happen, but you can choose how to respond to those problems? If you don't let yourself become more powerful with your responses to life, and remember that you do not need to allow a situation to control your state. You can still control your state from within, even if a negative situation happens. If you don't see it in that way, what's the consequence of that? And if you're going to hold on to a belief that you need to forgive somebody and then forget about it, but then you're not embracing that pain and some part of you is still holding on to that pain, what's the consequence? How's that going to affect your life? How do you feel in your body about that? How's that going to affect your family life? How's that going to affect your financial life? How's that going to affect your relationships? If you're walking through your life and you haven't forgave the pain of the past and you're holding it into your body, if you're holding resentment and pain and suffering in your body based upon something that happened a long time ago or something that happened in the past, how is that going to affect your life? Is that the way that you want to live? Is that the way that you want to walk through life, is not forgiving the past? Now, to conclude this video, just remember that if you really want to become more wise and to become better, just remember that you can walk through life and use those past experiences to be better. And remember that you choose your identity. Nobody is forcing you to be something. You can be the person that you want to be, and fully own the fact that you are empowered enough to be your own person, to make your own choices. Nobody needs to make choices for you. You can be your own person. You can create what you want. You can step into your vision. You have permission to do so. Anything that stops you, you can use it as a lesson, embrace it, move on, take that pain of the past, shift, move on from it, shift into that new person, forgive the situation, don't forget it, and then continue on to what you want to create anyway in your life.